And now, only tonight at 6, a major update for Louisville's 12,000 Ford factory workers. You can breathe a sigh of relief. There won't be any layoffs for now, despite the pressure from President Donald Trump's auto tariffs. So, what exactly did we hear from Ford? There was a lot of anxiety leading up to this announcement. General Motors had just warned of a possible $5 billion impact from the tariffs. In comparison, Ford's projected hit, $2.50 billion, seems lighter, though still significant. The company revealed that it expects a $1.5 billion loss just this year from the tariffs, citing price increases and the added cost of making more vehicles in the U.S. So if you're thinking of buying American, especially a Ford, it's worth hitting pause and thinking twice. May 17, 2025, may go down as one of the darkest days in Ford's long history. On that day, the iconic brand, once a symbol of the American dream, shocked the nation by announcing the shutdown of several assembly lines on U.S. soil. 2 major plants in Michigan and Chicago are closing indefinitely. Nearly 9,000 workers have already lost their jobs. This isn't just bad news, it's a full-blown labor crisis in the American Midwest. And here's the most painful part. Ford forecasts losing $1.5 billion in 2025, not because of China or war, but due to Trump's 25% tariffs on cars and imported parts. Rather than bringing jobs back home, this policy is now shutting down U.S. factories one after another. When asked about the fallout, Trump didn't express regret. He simply said, they should have brought production back to America a long time ago. So now, the big question is, was America First just a catchy slogan because thousands of families are now left without jobs and without answers? Let's dig deeper into the latest political developments and what's really happening behind the scenes with Trump's recent bold moves. And before we go on, don't forget to subscribe and hit the bell so you never miss one of our videos. When Donald Trump announced his 2024 re-election run, one of his biggest promises was to bring back American industry, especially with a new wave of America First policies. Among these, the most dramatic was the 25% tariff on all imported vehicles and parts, even from U.S. allies like Canada, Mexico, Japan, and South Korea. Trump claimed the policy would protect American workers, rebuild local manufacturing, and cut off reliance on Chinese goods. But less than a year later, the actual results paint a very different picture. Ford, one of America's big 3 automakers, revealed it will lose over $1.5 billion in 2025 alone due to skyrocketing production costs. According to its Q1 2025 investor report, the price of key imported parts, especially for electric vehicles like batteries, sensors, and chips, has surged between 18% and 32% since the tariff took effect in February. And the damage isn't just financial. Ford's manufacturing process is heavily reliant on a cross-border supply chain stretching from Ontario, Canada, to Monterrey, Mexico. This system was designed over decades to save on costs and increase production speed. But a study from the Brookings Institution in April 2025 found that over 40% of a Ford vehicle built in Michigan relies on components from outside the U.S. that makes the 25% tariff especially harmful. At Ford's Chicago plant, once a proud symbol of U.S. industry, more than 2,300 workers were laid off indefinitely in May. The Flat Rock plant in Michigan cut another 1,100 positions. According to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, layoffs in the auto manufacturing sector jumped 12.5% compared to last year, the highest increase since the COVID-19 pandemic. In a CNBC interview on May 17th, Ford CEO Jim Farley didn't hold back. He said, "We support domestic production, but we simply can't build advanced EVs using American steel and aluminum that cost twice as much as imports." He added that the tariffs haven't created new jobs. They've just raised costs while starving factories of the parts they need. Rather than leading to more investment at home, U.S. automakers are now delaying or canceling expansion plans because they can't operate in such an unstable tax environment. One prime example, Ford's next-gen EV project, T3, which was supposed to launch by the end of 2025. Now, delayed indefinitely. Reuters reports the cost per vehicle has ballooned to over $50,000, 22% higher than the original goal. That's forcing Ford to raise prices, making it harder to compete. Meanwhile, rivals in Europe and South Korea, who enjoy stable local policies and generous export support, are rapidly growing their U.S. market share. So while Make America Great Again continues to be chanted at campaign rallies, things look very different inside American factories. Production is stalling, orders are drying up, and thousands of workers are losing the jobs they were promised would return. Many economists say this choke the imports approach is doing more harm than good. In a recent report, the Peterson Institute for International Economics said the 25% tariff will raise U.S. car prices by an average of $5,700 per vehicle. That's pushing more buyers toward used cars or even gray market imports. In short, Ford's crisis is not a one-off. It's a flashing red warning that tariff-based trade policies can backfire, and it's the American people who end up footing the bill. Just weeks after Trump's tariff plan took effect in April 2025, the U.S. auto industry was rocked by waves of bad news, from rising prices to project cancellations. And the effects aren't limited to Ford. GM, Stellantis, and other major automakers are also dealing with massive disruptions, and the numbers don't lie. Ford just announced price hikes for 3 popular models built in Mexico: Mustang Mach-E, up by $1,500 to $2,000, Bronco Sport, up $600 to $1,500, Maverick, increased by about $700. These prices apply to vehicles built after May 2nd, 2025, and expected to hit showrooms by late June. Ford emphasized that although it tried to absorb some of the tariff costs, rising production expenses made these increases unavoidable. Facing retaliatory tariffs from China, reaching as high as 150% on U.S.-made vehicles, Ford has temporarily paused exports of several popular models to China. These include the F-150 Raptor, Mustang, Bronco, and Lincoln Navigator. This decision is intended to minimize heavy financial losses caused by steep tariffs and fierce competition within the Chinese auto market. At the same time, Ford has had to revise its investment and development strategies. It has delayed the release of its upcoming electric vehicle models until 2026 and suspended operations at its Blue Oval City facility in Kentucky. Additionally, Ford has laid off 350 employees from its connected vehicle software department as part of cost-cutting measures, driven by falling revenue. Ford isn't alone. Other major car makers like GM and Stellantis are also grappling with these difficulties. General Motors has lowered its profit outlook for 2025, expecting losses between $4 and $5 billion due to the tariffs. Stellantis, the parent company of Jeep, Ram, and Chrysler, has halted production at several plants across Canada and Mexico and has laid off around 900 workers at U.S. locations. Goldman Sachs analysts predict that U.S. car sales will decline by nearly 1 million vehicles in 2025, dropping from 16 million to roughly 15 million units. The primary cause: rising vehicle prices, which are prompting many buyers to delay or cancel their purchases. The Trump administration's tariff strategy, designed to defend the domestic auto sector, appears to be having the opposite effect. Rather than stimulating growth and job creation, it's driving up costs, hurting sales, and forcing American automakers to rethink their operations. Once a symbol of America's economic strength, the U.S. auto industry is now staring at the possibility of recession, unless quick and sensible policy changes are made. More economists are now asking, if this economic course continues, which industry might be next in line to suffer? Here at Deep State, we're committed to delivering up-to-date political insights to help you stay ready for the shifting global economy. So be sure to subscribe so you never miss the fastest, sharpest updates we bring your way. Tariffs have already triggered deep and widespread effects on the American auto sector, especially in key Midwestern states like Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana. And these states, home to numerous car factories and suppliers, are now seeing waves of layoffs that are directly hitting thousands of workers and their families. Ford Motor Company confirmed layoffs in both the U.S. and Canada, especially within its connected vehicle software division. These job cuts reflect the company's struggle to maintain vehicle production and innovation while navigating rising costs caused by new tariffs. It's not just Ford. Major suppliers like Lear Corporation are also reducing staff on a massive scale. Lear announced that it will cut around 15,000 jobs worldwide in 2025, following a similar round of cuts last year. These actions come as companies battle with ballooning production costs and shrinking market demand, all tied to the ongoing tariff pressure. To respond to falling sales, Ford introduced the Employee Pricing for Everyone program, which ran from April 3rd to June 2nd, 2025. The campaign let customers buy Ford and Lincoln models at the same discounted rates offered to employees. But even with this incentive, the additional production costs from tariffs pushed new car prices even higher. According to Kelley Blue Book data, the average price of a new vehicle in the U.S. increased by 2.5% in April 2025, reaching $48,699. That marks the largest April price jump since 2020, and it's more than double the average monthly increase of the past 10 years. This surge is mainly caused by more expensive parts and materials, largely driven by tariff-related costs. The ripple effects of these tariff policies stretch far beyond car makers. They're impacting the entire supply chain and local economies in places like Michigan, Ohio, and Indiana, where the auto industry plays a central role. With factories cutting labor and production, these communities are now dealing with serious fallout, rising unemployment, lower household income, and widespread economic strain. These recent developments raise serious concerns about the effectiveness of current trade policies and their actual impact on American workers. While the original goal of the tariffs was to shield domestic industries and create new jobs, the reality is turning out quite the opposite, especially for regions that rely heavily on the auto industry. For decades, the North American automotive sector has operated through a highly integrated and efficient supply chain that closely connects the United States, Mexico, and Canada. Ford, one of the major car makers, has fully utilized this system, assembling engines in Windsor, Canada, building car bodies in Hermosillo, Mexico, and finishing the vehicles in Dearborn, USA. But when tariffs were introduced, Ford faced a sudden and steep rise in production costs, an estimated $4,911 more per vehicle made in the U.S., thanks to new import taxes on parts coming from Mexico and Canada. This sharp increase forced Ford to temporarily halt operations at several facilities and delay new investments, including the much-anticipated opening of its Blue Oval City plant in Kentucky, now pushed back to 2026. It wasn't just Ford that felt the blow. Other auto giants like Toyota, Nissan, and Honda also had to rethink their strategies. Toyota, for instance, is now looking into shifting some RAV4 production from Canada and Japan to its plant in Kentucky, aiming to avoid tariffs and lower costs, though doing so would require time and expensive factory adjustments. Nissan, on the other hand, stopped accepting U.S. orders for 2 Infiniti SUV models built in Mexico, while boosting production of its Rogue model in Smyrna, Tennessee, to fill the gap in volume. The ripple effects of these tariff decisions stretch far beyond just automakers. According to the Center for Automotive Research, U.S. car manufacturers, Ford, GM, and Stellantis among them, are expected to shoulder around $41.7 billion in added costs due to the tariffs. This hits their bottom line and weakens their competitive edge on the global stage. American consumers are feeling the pain too. Higher production costs are translating into more expensive cars, which not only burdens buyers but also drags down overall sales, putting further stress on an already strained industry. In response, automakers are scrambling to redesign supply chains, adjust factory operations, and search for ways to stay afloat in a turbulent economic climate. But these changes can't happen overnight. Getting through this storm will take not just time, but also meaningful support from the government and close cooperation among all stakeholders involved. The Trump administration's 25% tariff policy has had consequences far beyond U.S. borders. American-made cars have become luxury items in global markets. Ford, one of the largest U.S. automakers, had to stop exporting models like the F-150 Raptor, Mustang, Bronco, and Lincoln Navigator to China, where import duties soared to 150%. That decision hit revenue hard, cutting Ford off from one of its most lucrative international markets. China retaliated by slapping an additional 84% tariff on U.S. products, including cars, making American vehicles far less attractive compared to options from countries like South Korea and Germany. Meanwhile, in Europe, American car dealers are grappling with doubled logistics and tariff expenses, pushing them to slash orders and rethink their business models. Even within the U.S., domestic cars are now pricier than many imported ones. In April 2025 alone, new car prices in the U.S. jumped by 2.5%, marking the sharpest monthly increase since the 2008 financial crisis. This raises tough questions about whether the tariff policy is truly protecting the U.S. auto industry or hurting it. When Ford announced it was shutting down several U.S. factories due to these impacts, Trump's reaction left many stunned. Asked about the closures, he bluntly said, "They should have brought production back to America a long time ago." His comment baffled economic advisors and raised alarms among industry leaders who are now worried about future collaboration under another Trump term. The financial markets reacted instantly. Shares of major automakers, Ford, General Motors, and Stellantis, plunged, reflecting investor fears over an unpredictable trade environment. Ford had to withdraw its 2025 financial forecast, estimating losses near $1.5 billion due to supply chain disruptions and tariff-related costs. Even with mounting evidence of economic harm, Trump has stood firm on his America First slogan, insisting that U.S. industry will eventually thrive. But experts are sounding the alarm, warning that the current tariff strategy may inflict long-lasting damage on the American auto sector, reducing global competitiveness and hurting consumers at home. So is this truly the right path? Especially now that Trump has had to pause tariffs on China for 90 days to allow negotiations. Every time Trump speaks, it sends waves across global financial markets. What will he do next? When the slogan, "America First," was first chanted as a promise to rebuild the nation, few imagined it might sow the seeds of a self-made crisis. Yet the U.S. auto industry stands today as the clearest warning sign. These financial losses are no longer theoretical, they're real. Thousands of workers laid off, production lines halted, millions of Americans putting off dreams of owning a new car because of skyrocketing prices. In today's global economy, no corporation, not even Ford, can simply drag their supply chains back to the U.S. overnight. That kind of transformation needs a long-term roadmap and genuine government backing. Bold slogans without a solid foundation only serve to break apart a well-oiled system that's taken decades to build. So when jobs vanish, factories go silent, and families are forced to tighten their budgets. Do political slogans still carry any real meaning? Has making America great again now come to mean sacrificing American workers for political ambition? The closing question of this video might also be its loudest warning. Is Ford just another casualty? Or is it the beginning of a deeper unraveling inside the heart of America? Please subscribe to 3 Daily News and turn on notifications so you won't miss our next political and economic update.